Okay, we're back. I was wrong. This is not number 10. This is number 9. Robbie is number 9. So we're basically going to finish out all. Well, I still have to do Leyland. But all other than Leyland, all the playoff teams are done. So this is number 9. I'd have you just outside the playoffs. That being said, I'm sure someone ahead of you will mismatch their team and you'll make the playoffs anyway, Robbie. I just don't. I don't love your team. You can just call me a hater. It's fine. But I think even you would agree your top end upside isn't like that of some of the other teams in this draft. Auction's been tough on you. Gosh, this team isn't all that different from your team last year. And I think, what was it? Yeah, I knocked you out of the playoffs last year. If I remember correctly, how many? Let me check the schedule before we even go any further. That was a win. Okay. So yeah, I lost to you the last week of the season to get you in the playoffs, and then I immediately thumped you, and I thumped you to start the season too. So, yeah. 2-for-1 last year for me. I like that. I'll take that. Anyway, the point is, I don't think your team's too much from last year, and I don't know. I don't love that. So I have you just outside the playoffs. Obviously, in season management, I think you'll be fine. But starting things off, you were patient with the money. You went 34 overall, so right before Brian jumped in, and you went Isaiah Pachenko for $69. Now, I will grant you, Matthew Berry has mentioned multiple times, his ride or die this year is Kyler Murray. His second option was Isaiah Pachenko, and I do think Pachenko is in for a very good season, so I could kind of see that. But 69, at that price point, you might as well have just paid freaking Christian McCaffrey went for 79. You're playing Pachenko for $10 less. Jesus. So, but his sophomore year was last year. He was very good, 15.3 fantasy points a game. He was definitely better as the season wore on. In the playoffs, he was the second best player on the Chiefs. He had 373 yards and 3 touchdowns in the playoffs last year, so he was huge in the playoffs. And he gets all the goal line touches, so he's the primary back. I think he was, in fantasy, though, in the regular season, he was only the 16th best fantasy running back, and you're paying him like he's a top 5 guy. Now, all of that said, he played like it. He was very good. The rub is, the Chiefs are going for a three-peat. There's no telling they're probably going to limit his workload late in the season, which is part of the reason why I didn't want him, especially because his end-of-season schedule is brutal. I think they do a Saturday game, and then they're playing on Christmas on Wednesday, too. That's during championship week. I don't know how many touches he's going to get by then. The Chiefs are going for a title, so they're not playing for fantasy, late season, regular season, number 1 seed. They just want to be healthy going into the playoffs. So I'm thinking he's going to have a worse year than last year. I'm thinking maybe 950 yards, so 15 yards more, but less receiving, so maybe 200 yards receiving. He'll probably get maybe 10 touchdowns. But again, that was literally the 16th best fantasy running back last year. It's not great that we're paying that much. You can bet on the upside and say, oh, no one's there. Kind of no one's there. They just signed Samaje Perine, so someone's there now. Perine's probably going to get some pass-catching work. He's never been all that impressive as a rusher, but, he was taking that from Joe Mixon. He was taking that from Javonte Williams. He's probably going to be taking that from Isaiah Pachenko. So I like Pachenko. I can see the upside. He's a very good player. Andy Reid is known for having top 5 running backs up until basically he got Patrick Mahomes. He had Brian Westbrook, Deuce Staley, LaShawn McCoy, Kareem Hunt. So I don't know if Pacheco's going to have as good a season as those guys, though. I mean, this is the Patrick Mahomes show, and if Mahomes is throwing for 40 touchdowns, how many touchdowns is Pacheco going to get? I can't imagine the number is more than 10. So I think you paid a lot for him. I think you overpaid for him. I had him at like a 55-point player, so I think you blew your load on him when you could have gotten better players for just a bit more. Again, you can say, oh, Pacheco's like a really good player. Cool. Spend the extra $10 on getting Christian McCaffrey then. Why not? Christian McCaffrey is on a Hall of Fame track. Is Pacheco going to be a Hall of Fame player? I don't think so. So I could have done the same thing, so you can argue that with me if you want. But you spent more on Pacheco than I spent on Derrick Henry. Henry definitely has a better resume, even if you think he's older. 38 overall, $18, Rashee Rice. Okay, I do like this pick, despite not liking the human. So first thing, let's get this out of the way. The NFL has come out and said that unless procedures, like something comes out differently, they're not planning on suspending Rashee Rice. At this moment in time, that man faces 8 felonies involving hit-and-run accidents. Like 8 felonies. It's a lot. He's going to trial in December, but I mean, even if he pleads them down, I can't imagine he gets away with I mean, he might avoid jail time, but I can't imagine he doesn't plead out of. He pleads out of all of them. Like, he's probably gonna get charged with at least some misdemeanors or something. Like 8 felonies, really, and he's gonna play the whole season. But hey, here we are. That's the NFL, I guess. But he was very good last year. He did most of his damage in the short game. I mean, 2 years ago, it was Juju Smith-Schuster. 3 years ago, it was Tyreek Hill. I suppose last year was the Rashee Rice show. He was the number 8 fantasy receiver in the last 7 weeks of the season, specifically. But he's a solid wide receiver, too. You're getting him at this discount because of the felonies, because everyone's just like, he could be suspended at any point. I mean, the NFL has come and said that in the week since we had our draft, so I guess that's kind of your saving grace. I still don't really love it, though. It wouldn't surprise me if something else comes up. Just all very, murky. But I guess that kind of works. The only thing I would say is he faces a lot more competition at wide receiver this year. We've gotten rid of Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Thank you, Jesus. And Kadarius Toney. And we have drafted Xavier Worthy. We signed Hollywood Brown, who's already hurt. Yes, I grant you, I understand. But we did sign him. He's there. We also brought back Juju Smith-Schuster. So we're throwing more resources at wide receiver now. I don't think Rashee Rice is going to get as much work as he got last year. So we'll say 900 yards, 8 touchdowns, which is a little less than what he did. But he's solidly a number 2 wide receiver. Getting him for $18 when, I don't know, Nico Collins is going for 36, and player for player last year, I mean, Nico had the better season, but basically I have them kind of similar, having similar seasons. So getting Rashee Rice for half the cost is a good piece of work, even though we know why you got him for half the cost. So, hey, just like Deshaun Watson, sometimes you'll take people with questionable character. 41 overall, $8, Trey McBride. I really like this pick. McBride was very good last year. It was his breakout sophomore campaign. He was the lead Arizona pass catcher in targets, 105, receptions, 81, yards, 825. Once Zach Ertz was put on injured reserve, McBride just became the guy. That's why Ertz is no longer there. That being said, Ertz faces a lot more competition for targets now because Marvin Harrison Jr. is there. And if I have to choose between Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride, I'm going to pick up Marvin Harrison Jr. But that's okay because McBride we got at a cheap discount. So getting McBride for $8, I mean, a lot of the tight ends went for around that. I think Sam Laporta went for around that. I drafted Mark Andrews for that. So that was like the high end of every basically tight end except for Travis Kelce went for around there. Yeah, McBride, I mean, that's a steal. He should be double that at least. I think 800 yards. I think maybe 5 touchdowns, but the possibility for more. We just don't really know with the Arizona offense, but I could see him getting near 1,000 yards if that offense is high flying. So he's a good player, and getting him for on the cheap, that's a good piece of work. So he may have only been the number 8 fantasy tight end last year, but I got him as the number 4 fantasy tight end this year, and that's good. Amari Cooper, 72 overall, $10. I don't know. Like, I remember, what is it? We're going on 3 years ago. Andre won with Amari Cooper as his number 1, and he got him for $10. And Amari Cooper's still kind of doing the same thing, and he's still going for $10. Like, it just, I'm baffled by it. Last year, he was, again, the number 16 wide receiver in fantasy. He had a 51.5 point week 16 against the Texans. Like, he has over 100 targets a year. He had 1,250 yards. So he literally had like a Nico Collins, freaking Brandon Ayuk season, and he went for cheaper than either of them. Like, I get Watson's been genuinely awful in Cleveland, but like Cooper is like an easy 1,000-yard, just like the same way Mike Evans is an easy 1,000-yard player for the Bucs. Amari Cooper's an easy 1,000 yards for Cleveland, but nobody knows it. Every year we go through Amari Cooper goes for $10 in the draft, and I don't know why. Like, I genuinely don't understand. He's literally been a top 15 receiver every single freaking season, going on like 8 years now. And yet for 4 years in a row, he's been $10, $10, $10, $10. Like, I don't get it. I don't care who's throwing him the ball. That level of consistency's got to be worth more than this. So, will he have as good a season as he had last year? Probably not. Especially because that late season game against Houston, he had 265 yards receiving. Man, that might have really come in handy for you in the playoffs. But no one wanted him. So I think we'll get 1,100 yards. I think we'll get 75 receptions. I think we'll get like 6 to 7 touchdowns. Probably another top 15 fantasy wide receiver season. Just quietly for $10. I just baffled. Genuinely baffled that he continues to go, like, literally does this every year and literally goes for the same amount of money, and it's on the cheap and no one bats an eye. Like, I literally had him on my draft board circled, and I couldn't get him because I didn't have the money, and I pushed him up to $10. Like, he was going to go for less. Amari Cooper should be paid more than this. He should be going for at least double this price. So another good piece of work. Cooper's been a part of a couple championship teams now on this run, and people just don't draft him. So 78 overall, $9, Deontay Johnson. Okay, here's the good. Deontay Johnson's still one of the best technicians in football. He's still, I think he was 6th in separation rate last year. So he's very, very good at creating a separation. He was just genuinely bad with Kenny Pickett and whatever quarterback the Steelers were trotting out there, which is fair. They were terrible. He hasn't exactly done a lot of great things since Ben Roethlisberger, like 3 years ago now. He's an elite route runner. He always demands a target share around 25%. Chances are he's the number 1 target in Carolina. How good do you think Carolina is? So we'll say on the low end, we'll give him 1,000 yards just because I think he's genuinely great. We'll give him 75 receptions because he demands that kind of volume. And we'll say like 6 touchdowns. The problem is Carolina's bad. They're just bad. I don't really give a crap how good of separation Deontay Johnson does if his quarterback's horrible. Bryce Young basically was Kenny Pickett last year. You'll notice Kenny Pickett's now a backup in Philadelphia. Now, Bryce Young is the number 1 overall pick. He gets more runway to make mistakes, but Jesus, he was bad Jesus could not turn this water into wine. Carolina was that bad. Or in this case, cheer wine. So I don't have a whole lot of hope. You might have hope because it's just like, oh, Carolina's going to be better. I mean, better's a subjective word. I guess they can't get worse. But geez, man, like I don't have a whole lot of hope in that. So I guess by a process of elimination, he might get touches the same way Malik Neighbors will get touches with Daniel Jones, but that's not a great way of getting the ball or even really being fed properly. I don't know. The other worry I have with him is Deontay could just go off the rails and just be a malcontent because he's in a terrible situation. So I see him as like a wide receiver 2, we'll say a wide receiver like flex, wide receiver 3 flex area. It's like a top 30-ish wide receiver. And we'll see if he becomes something more. I'm not going to give you more because Carolina's that bad a situation. But we'll see. We'll see. 89 overall, $13, Anthony Richardson. You think Anthony Richardson might be the number one breakout fantasy quarterback? I mean, what? He played 3.5 games last year. He plays kind of like Cam Newton, Josh Allen. He's another young running quarterback. We like that. Who just gets hurt a lot. We don't like that. He was very, very good in the games that he actually finished. We have a very small sample size. He only started 13 games at Florida, so not a whole lot to go on there. I think he's going to have a worse season than Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray went for less. I think he went for $8. You paid $13 for Richardson. You're buying the potential. I'm not really buying that upside, mostly because he gets injured too much. I don't think he's going to pass for even 20 touchdowns. I'm going to say like 18. We'll give you around 33 to 3,500 yards passing. Really, the bacon will be, can he run? I think if he stays healthy the whole season, he'll get like 600 yards rushing. I think he might get even double-digit touchdowns. And that'll make him worth something. I think that'll make him be like borderline top 5 quarterback. But again, the risk is, can he stay healthy? My bet is no. Especially the way they use him, trying to use him like Jalen Hurts, and he is not that strong. He is tall. He's not that strong. So, hot take, I think Jaden Daniels will have a better season than Anthony Richardson, mostly because Daniels will probably be healthy the whole season, and Richardson probably won't. But in a place where the number one fantasy quarterback is Josh Allen, and he goes for $15, and we draft Anthony Richardson for $13, don't like that. Not really a fan of that. Think that's kind of silly. I don't think I would do that. I don't know how much upside you need to believe in to pay for almost exactly what the other guy already is. Like, we think Anthony Richardson could possibly be Josh Allen. So for the price, why not just pick Josh Allen? But hey, what am I? Who's to say? So 99 overall, $29. Oof, that's a lot late in the draft for Brian Robinson Jr. You had your eye on him. I like Brian Robinson Jr. I know he's been passed around a lot. Had him his rookie year after he got shot. He was on Mac's team last year, then got traded to Brian. He had a good season. I think, who's the offensive coordinator now? I know Dan Quinn's the coach. Who is the Commanders' offensive coordinator? Let's look that up quickly. Oh, Cliff Kingsbury. Oh, okay. So the former Arizona head coach and the USC guy last year who had a losing record at Texas Tech, got fired, and then got the Cardinals job because they're stupid. Got it. All right. So we're hoping, okay, so Daniels, Jaden Daniels is kind of just being Kyler Murray, and Terry McLaurin is doing DeAndre Hopkins, and Brian Robinson Jr. is James Conner, I guess, ish. I guess that's what we're going for. I mean, he was good last year. He averaged 13 fantasy points a game. I think with Kingsbury's offense, he's a better fit than Eckler. Uh, the problem is Dan Quinn is a very old school coach. I remember, gosh, I remember going with the Falcons and wanting Devontae Freeman, and he wouldn't feed Devontae Freeman enough when they were going to the Super Bowl. Because I forget who the other one was that he kept fighting with him for touches. But it was basically like a split backfield, and I kind of get the feeling that will happen again. Because Eckler still has a little bit of juice, especially catching the ball. And that's really the problem for Robinson. I think he'll get a lot of early down work, but he'll give up a lot of the pass catching work, which is what will hurt him. He's kind of like a running back 3, so we're saying maybe like 800 yards, maybe like 6 touchdowns, and maybe like a couple hundred yards receiving. So like a 1,000 yards break. For $29, that's basically what I say at cost. That's probably what he's worth at running back. Would I rather have someone like Josh Jacobs for 35? Yeah, I would. I think he has more upside in this situation in Green Bay than Brian Robinson Jr. But I know you're kind of a homer, so it's okay. Robinson Jr., I do think is a genuinely good player. He was a good player at Alabama. He's been a good player for Washington. If Kingsbury actually gives him the James Conner role and he actually gets more volume because he is genuinely an efficient running back, he is more efficient than he gets credit for, then I think that Robinson Jr. will become something. So it's not a bad bet. I think for the cost for the running back isn't bad. I'm just surprised you went all in on him like that. Pick number 100, $3, Christian Kirk. Man, this pick hurt me because I actually really wanted Kirk. I waited too long on quarterback. I was saving some money to get quarterback later on, and I apparently didn't need to save all that money. So this one hurt me to see Kirk go for $3 because Kirk was he's been a revelation the last couple of years. He got injured. I think he missed, like, I want to say, basically, like, the back third of the season. He missed at least 5 games. Calvin Ridley came there, and we thought Kirk would assume, like, a smaller role, because 2 years ago, he was, like, the guy in Jacksonville. And we're like, oh, man, he looks so great. And then Calvin Ridley's coming in, it's like, okay, Kirk's got to take a back seat. That's not exactly what happened. Kirk looked good. Kirk looked very good last year when he was playing. I mean, he was still like a double-digit fantasy producer, I think, outside of him getting hurt week 1. He was a very good player. I think we're kind of running into the same thing. Brian Thomas Jr. is there. I talked about this on, like, Brian's video. And now Gabe Davis is there. There's, like, players that I like and I see potential, and they're younger than him, but I don't exactly know how they fit in the offense, whereas I know exactly how Kirk fits in the offense. So for my money, I would say Kirk is probably going to catch the most balls in Jacksonville. I think he's a good flex candidate. I think he's a good wide receiver 3-esque player. He's someone that I wanted, I will admit. I think he'll get close to 1,000 yards this year. I think his touchdown volume might be a little low at like 5, but for $3, I mean, I had him at like a $15 player. So, yeah. I mean, I think he's a top 30 receiver. If Brian Thomas, I keep saying Brian Robinson because of the Washington running back, but if Brian Thomas Jr., the new wide receiver, the first round pick out of LSU, or Gabe Davis, like, kind of steps in and actually is kind of like that big number 1 receiver the way DeAndre Hopkins was and Christian Kirk was the slot man, then Kirk might take a back seat. But I kind of get the feeling neither of them are going to take that, and Kirk is just going to continue to be the number 1 receiver in Jacksonville because he's very efficient as a slot man. He's a lot like Julian Edelman. He's a very good route runner. So, yeah, this was a very good pick. I am jealous of this pick. This was very well done. I am sad that I did not get him. I got Cortland Sutton instead. 110 overall, $7, Jonathan Brooks. Okay. I don't believe in the Panthers. I mentioned that already. Not a fan of their not a fan of their coaching staff. Not a fan of Bryce Young. Not a whole lot of hope there. I got some hope for Brooks though. If Jonathan Brooks doesn't tear his ACL last year in Texas, I think he's a first-round pick. Now, was he overshadowed by Bijan Robinson? Yes. I think Bijan Robinson, again, is the most talented running back in football. But that's not to say Jonathan Brooks is bad. Jonathan Brooks is a very good player. Very good running back. They still took him in the second round. He, I think, will come at midseason. He's very, very gifted at receiver. He's very, very good vision. I mean, I would hope so. He sat behind Bijan Robinson for 2 years. I hope he learned something there. As we know, ACLs can sap a lot of productivity. We saw that with Javonte Williams last year. So I'm not really sure what version of Brooks we'll get. But if we get Texas version of Brooks, then that's a very good pick because Brooks should unequivocally be the number one running back. And what we learned from Dave Canales last year with the Bucs is if you're the number one running back, you get all the volume. You get all of the touches because nothing else matters, and we have to run the ball to establish authority? Question mark? I like Brooks, though. As a talent, he's a very, very good player. He's an upper echelon player in talent. I just need to see if he's healthy. We'll say he only plays half a season. We'll say he gets 600 yards. We'll say he gets 5 touchdowns. And for half a season as a rookie running back, it's very good. That is borderline RB2 numbers for half a season. So, yeah, love it. Again, under $10, any running back with a pulse, Jonathan Brooks, high upside player. Really, really like him. 112, another $7. Jaylen Warren. Ooh, I like that sneaky pick. All right. Do I like Arthur Smith? No. Am I happy he's the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator? No. Do I think Jaylen Warren ought to be the starter in Pittsburgh? Yes. Do I think he's better than Najee Harris? Yes. Do I think that's actually going to happen? No. I like Jaylen Warren. I think he's a great playmaker. I think he's really good at receiving. He's a good pass blocker. He's more explosive. And I want this man to finally get 200 touches. It never happens. We always fail. And I don't mean 200 touches total. He technically got 200 touches. I mean 200 rushing attempts. We never get it. Oh, he's too small. He can't handle it. Give it to him. He's stayed healthy the whole time already. He had over 210 touches last year. Give him his 200 rushing attempts. I'm tired of this. If he's genuinely better than Najee Harris, give him the ball. You should be playing your best players, Pittsburgh. Jesus. So, I like Jaylen Warren. I think he's got a shot at being an RB2. I think he's the best. Yeah, I think he's the best offensive player in Pittsburgh. Wow, that's weird to say. But George Pickens still really raw. There's not a whole lot else at receiver. Pratt Freiermuth is a good tight end. Najee Harris is slow. I suppose on the offensive line, I really like Broderick Jones. They look terrible in the preseason. Zach Frazier's a rookie at center. I mean, I could go through the whole Pittsburgh freaking lineup. I think Jaylen Warren's genuinely the best offensive talent on Pittsburgh today, right now. And I want him to get the ball more. I don't think will happen because we have Arthur Smith, and Arthur Smith is going to do dumb things and has Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, and suddenly Cordero Patterson's getting goal line touches. I hate that. But that's kind of what we're dealing with in Pittsburgh. And you know who's there in Pittsburgh? Of course they signed Cordero Patterson. So we'll say 600 yards rushing. We'll say 400 yards receiving. We'll say 1,000 yards total, maybe 3 or 4 touchdowns. Again, he was a top 25 running back last year. Excuse me. I think he'll be a top 25 running back this year. Arthur Smith loves to run the ball. The rush rate with the Steelers ought to be high. I just wish Warren would get the ball more. We never give him enough. I'm tired of waiting. We're going into year 3. We've had 2 years of this, of him looking great and not giving him the ball enough. Please, just give him the ball more. Just give him the ball more. That's all I want. If I have to tolerate Arthur Smith being my coordinator, don't let him run the freaking depth chart. I don't want to see Daryl Patterson getting goal line touches. Like, the object of football is to win. All right, we're trying to win games. That means you get the ball in your best player's hands. It's the best chance you have of winning games, Arthur Smith. All right, we're not gonna like, oh, Kyle Pitts should be blocking. Oh, Cordero Patterson should be like running swing routes and taking goal line touches. No. What you should be doing is giving the ball to your best players and letting them do their thing. Like, it's not about you. It's about the players on the field. Let them produce. So, I personally like Jaylen Warren. I like the player. I think he's talented. I think you're going to be disappointed because the Steelers are not going to use him properly again. 130 overall, $2. Can't get enough of him. Your man with the hamstrings, or should I say lack of hamstrings, Christian Watson. So, what do we like, what we don't like? I mean, gosh, how many receivers are taken out of this freaking Packers, like, offense? How many receivers are there? I'm going to look that up. I'm pretty sure 4 receivers got drafted, because I can think off the top of my head. Mac took 2 of them in Dobbs and Wicks. I forget where Reed is. I'll have to, like, kind of jog my memory on that. But this is Christian Watson, so, like, that's already 4. That's a lot of them. Oh, Brian took Jaden Reed. Did I just pepper over that in Brian's video? I think I just peppered over that in Brian's video. I just totally missed Jaden Reed. Yeah, I totally just missed Jaden Reed in Brian's video for $7. Well, I guess if you watch this, Brian, just to kind of give you a little recap, I guess it's fine because we have no clue who the number 1 is in Green Bay. I mean, if we could figure that out and they could be like Devontae Adams, that'd be awesome. But we haven't been able to do that, so we don't know. Robbie's hoping it's Christian Watson because he has the most like draft pedigree, but it's almost like the Packers have too much like good receivers. I mean, Reed was good down the stretch last year. I guess we're on Robbie's video, so we'll focus on Watson. If we went by talent, we would say Christian Watson is the best receiver on the Packers. The problem is he's never healthy. Like, yeah, he's just never on the field. I think he's missed 11 games in 2 years. So I kind of see all the Packers wide receivers as like wide receiver 4s. So we're talking Watson, we're talking Dobbs, we're talking Wicks. I mean, maybe I'll give you Reed being a wide receiver 3, possibly 2. But I'm still kind of like, I need somebody to be the guy. And I haven't found who that guy is. Because we never really know because there's just a lot of people there. There's a lot of really good receivers. And yeah, I think Watson could be a star if he could just stay freaking healthy. And the problem is there's so many good players. There's so many good receivers here now. Funny, we're talking about the Packers and receivers, and they never drafted a receiver in the first round. They still never drafted a receiver in the first round. But we'll give Watson like 800 yards. We'll give him like 7 touchdowns. I mean, I think Watson's a great player when he's healthy. I think he could be a number wide receiver 2 when he's healthy. I think he would be the guy in Green Bay when he's healthy, but he's never healthy. So I don't think it's a bad bet. I think for the money, it's a good bet, especially because we do believe in Jordan Love. Jordan Love looks like what Aaron Rodgers looked like and what Brett Favre looked like, so we're just kind of continuing that legacy of Packers quarterback play. But I don't have very much hope for Watson figuring out his hamstrings. And you might say, well, why do you feel that way? Because this is the same thing that happened with Sammy Watkins. Literally the same thing. So did that ever work out? No, it never did work out. So I don't think it's going to work out. 162, $10, Jordan Love. All right, you took your backup quarterback. You love you some backup quarterback. I mean, Love was very good last year. I mean, late in the season, he was the number 5 fantasy quarterback, especially because he went on a late season run where he was very, very good for like basically from week 11 through week 18, he was like the number 3 fantasy quarterback. I think he only had 1 week where he was like, didn't have a top 10 quarterback week. So he got paid. That's good. He has a bunch of good receivers. Just mentioned them: Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks. I mean, gosh, we have Bo Melton as like our number 5 receiver, and he's really good. So he's got enough options. I think, what is it? He had a 3-to-1 touchdown interception rate last year, if I remember. Like, I think he had 32 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. He doesn't rush a whole lot, so I don't love him, but I like him. I don't think, though, he's going to have as good a season as he had last year. I think everything broke right. I mean, early in the season, he was rough. And I think their schedule is not kind to them this year. So I think he'll be a good fantasy quarterback. I think he'll be like, say like 8, 9? Like, is he better than like CJ Stroud? That's hard to say. They're kind of like similar range. Is he better than Josh? Like, we'll go down the list. All right, so Josh Allen's better than him. Patrick Mahomes is better than him. Jalen Hurts is a better fantasy quarterback than him. So those 3 are out of the way. I'll also probably say Joe Burrow is probably going to have a better season than him. I'll also probably say Kyler Murray is going to have a better season than him. That might be it, though. So we're saying like the 7th best fantasy quarterback. He's a good player. I think for $10, I mean, that's doable. If we're talking like, could he have value in our league? Yeah. Will you trade him at some point this season? Probably not, because you demand to be overpaid for backup quarterback play, even though we can find usable quarterbacks up free agency. I mean, hell, I just went to the finals last year with Matthew Stafford off freaking free agency. Why would I trade anything of value for a quarterback? So, I mean, I think Love is a good player. I mean, shoot, man, he probably will have a better season than Richardson, just because I think Richardson's not going to make it through the whole season. There you go. I think Jaden Daniels will have a better season than Anthony Richardson. I guess your saving grace is you have Jordan Reed. You can play the matchups, I suppose. I'd rather have the running back upside, though, on the bench. But yeah, I have you as my number 9 team because I have you outside the playoffs. But again, I think you'll manage your team better than probably at least 2 or 3 of the teams ahead of you. I just don't see a whole lot of championship upside. Like, unless you're going to sell me on, like, Anthony Richardson has a number 1 Josh Allen breakout year, realistically, your only star is Pacheco. And if you're going to sell me on Anthony Richardson has that kind of season, then why the hell didn't you just pay for Josh Allen? Like, Richardson's not going to have a better season than Josh Allen. So, why? I don't know. I think the team's really solid. I think you got a lot of good depth. I think the problem is you're not much of a trader. You don't really trade all that much. You have very high expectations for trades, and they never really work out, even when you should probably, like, just take the L and take what you can get sometimes. I like the team. Don't love the team. I put you at 9. Chances are you'll get into the playoffs at like 5 or 6. We'll say 6. Maybe make the semifinals depending on the matchup. But you're probably going to have to make some moves to get there. I just feel like this team is missing something to elevate them. You can disagree with me, but like, if Andre makes the playoffs and he has Breece Hall getting like 30 touches and 200 yards and McCaffrey getting like 30 touches and like 200 yards and however many touchdowns, then I'm going to take that over whatever this team of depth is. Like, that's just stars win you titles, and you don't have any. Well, we have one, I guess, in Pacheco, but even that I'm not really projecting him to be a top 5 running back. I guess you can say I'm wrong. But even if I am, who's the other star guy? Like, I like Amari Cooper. I think he's worth more than what you got him for, but I don't think he's like a number one Justin Jefferson kind of receiver or Tyreek Hill. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the team's good though, so I guess we'll kind of find out. But I'm just kind of like, this team doesn't. This team lacks upside. It lacks championship upside, and that's where I'm kind of at. Anyway, 9, but you'll probably make the playoffs because I'm sure someone ahead of you will bungle their team.